Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another Author's Afternoon right here in the Locher Room. I'm Alan Locher. Today, my guest is public relations, snarkiest publicist, and new author, Jeremy Murphy. Jeremy expertly chronicles his hatred, love, indifference, amusement, and scorn for the profession in F Off or Fuck Off Chloe, a new book due out in March of 2022. It's available right now on Amazon for pre-order. From entitled millennials to surly reporters, obnoxious clients, and cumbersome color-coded trackers, Murphy takes a scalpel to the PR industry in a searing, hilarious, and pissy voice that his own psychiatrist finds deeply concerning. His collection of annoyances shed light on his own industry's idiosyncrasies, insanities, contradictions, and past due invoices, providing an illuminating window into the dirty world of public relations not even Xanax can help. And for all you daytime fans, Jeremy includes a love letter to Santa Barbara in the book because he grew up watching it. Murphy is the founder of 360 Bespoke, a media agency that provides public relations, content development, reputation management, and crisis communication. He has a collection of clients that include a violinist, skincare brand, celebrity cosmetics line, fashion labels, a world-renowned florist, an opera star, among others. Prior to opening his own business, he spent 14 years at CBS Television, where he served many roles as vice president, most notably as a company spokesperson and editor-in-chief. He gained industry recognition at CBS, where he created and edited its glossy magazine, Watch. And that's where I believe he and I first met. I'm so excited he's here today to dish and tell us all about F Off Chloe. Please welcome to the Locher Room, Jeremy Murphy. That was a tongue twister, Jeremy. How are you?
Who wrote that?
But it's fascinating. And I said your industry, it's our industry. I love that you take aim at it. I said, is that where we first met while you were at Watch? I mean, you were at CBS when I was at P&G. Do you remember?
Yeah, we used to do. So Watch magazine was a glossy CBS magazine, and we envisioned it as Vanity Fair for CBS viewers. And the daytime soaps were like the best because the actors were modest and it was easy and there was no publicists. And, there were publicists, but like you were such a joy to work with. And
it's a different game in daytime.
Absolutely. And we did a shoot with As the World Turns at FAO Schwartz.
Yes.
We took the guiding light actors to JFK for a photo shoot, the Admirals Club. And we actually brought him in a helicopter.
Oh my God. Thank you for that reminder. I totally forgot.
Yeah. And we did Guiding Light, the ladies at Guiding Light at Kleinfeld's, the bridal one.
Yes, that I remember. Yeah.
What else did we do? We did some at the Willard Hotel. We recreated inauguration photos.
I'm trying to remember who was at FAO because I feel like I was there.
Oh my God. It was Jennifer Landon.
Jesse Lee, maybe?
Jesse Lee. Zach Rohrig.
Oh, wow.
And what's so funny is I was at a CW upfront party years later, and I bumped into Zach, who was on Vampire Diaries or something like that.
Yeah,
and he recognized me. And we had
You didn't recognize him?
I'm like,
he looked different when he was on Vampire Diaries.
And he's the one who danced on the giant piano.
The Tom Hanks
piano. The Tom Hanks big thing. So, no, doing the daytime stuff was such a pleasure. You guys were so nice to work with.
That's really a flashback because I didn't remember. I was trying to look because I have a lot of things digitized and was looking if I had copies of that here. But that's so funny. I totally remember all of that. Once you say things out loud, it's amazing. So I want to back up. You attended Florida Atlantic University. Did you major in public relations?
I majored in communications, which was kind of a very big umbrella that, PR, marketing, journalism, anything they can stuff in there. So it was a very broad degree.
Yeah, I did the same here in New Jersey. How did you end up in choosing PR from communications?
I got recruited. I started as a newspaper reporter, and I was with Night Ritter newspapers, and I jumped around. And then Media Week magazine in New York saw my stuff, and they moved me to New York, and I got this really nice job that I thought was like, very glamorous and high paying, but it wasn't. And then 2 years later, CBS was like, "Hey, come here, and we'll double your salary."
That's crazy. That's. I'm sure there are publicists who've started on the writer side. How did you like that side?
Well, I think if you're in PR, the best training you can get is in a newsroom, because you learn the heartbeat of a newsroom, you learn the culture of a newsroom, you learn the sensibilities of reporters, and you learn how to talk to them. There are certain things with reporters, when to call them, when not to call them, what to ask, when to ask. To this day, I do PR. I know what the headline's going to be. When I arrange a story for a client, I know what the headline's going to be. I know what the news, because that's how I would have written it. So it has been immeasurably beneficial to me doing PR.
I love that. I wish we had met when I was still, coming out of college, because I think that's really genius. And for anyone listening, a great piece of advice.
Absolutely.
You joined CBS in 2002. What was your first role there?
Oh my good Lord. It was so dumb. I was a copy editor of press releases. And the woman who had the job before me somehow convinced them that it took all day to do this. I had it done in an hour, and I used to sit there and like, what, that's it? I'd be done by 10. And so I just went looking for work. And then they realized, oh, he can write. Oh, he knows media. Oh, this and that. And I just kept growing and growing. And I started doing corporate communications and created the magazine and company spokesperson. Then I started writing speeches for the executives. So it just kept growing. Basically out of boredom. I was really bored.
Well, but that's, you kind of, it sounds like you knew you were in the place you wanted to be, and that's, taking an opportunity and sort of running with it.
Yeah,
trying to learn, learn the ropes and have people take notice.
I mean, you probably remember that. Those were the days where CBS was kind of the Wild West, because the company had been bought and sold so many times, and each time bureaucracy and layers of tradition get stripped away. So now you had a very nimble company where, Les Moonves was at the top. Mm-hmm. And then he had his people, and I worked for one of his people. And there was no bureaucracy. If you wanted to do something, you just, hey, I want to do this. And they said, go do it. And it was great. Those were the days where I remember I went and I said, hey, I want to take Neil Patrick Harris for a week to Italy and ride the Orient Express. And they're like, do it. You can't do that these days. You'd have to fill out 5 forms, do 3 proposals. I had to get one person to say yes, and not even in writing. It was fantastic.
And I think that's also a time when companies really did spend a lot more money frugally. I worked at Disney in like the late 80s and 90s, and it was lovely, let's just say,
Oh yeah, it was not uncommon to spend over $100,000 on a photo shoot at CBS. Now I have clients that don't want to spend $1,000. Yeah. And for me, it's such culture shock, because I'm used to the best photographers, makeup artists, stylists, lighting people. And now it's like, okay, I have pennies. How do I do this?
Yeah, even in daytime, I know, like, I've talked to, people who work, it's still some of the magazines, and they don't spend anything anymore on any photo shoots, sadly, which is sad more, for the actors who are coming on board as a new actor, who don't get to experience some of those great, taking a helicopter ride to JFK and, all of that. It's not happening, like it did before.
No, you don't get that glamour. I mean, I remember the year I left, we had done a big shoot with Patrick de Marchelier in Paris. and we brought the moms, Allison Janney and Anna Faris.
Yeah.
And it was like the dream team. And I remember telling my crew, it will never be like, don't get used to this. This is the end. The wave is crashing. Savor it, enjoy it. But, you know, no one's going to be able to do this anymore. We caught the tail end.
Yeah, I think so. And I have to admit, like, I spent almost 13 years at As the World Turns on Counting Right. And really one of my favorite aspects of that job was for photo shoots, because I love photography personally myself. So being creative in that environment was one of my favorite things. You actually said this earlier, and I said it in the intro, but crisis communications is something you were definitely responsible for at CBS. And I was pleasantly surprised to read that you were on the crisis communication team for the infamous Janet Jackson Super Bowl moment. What was that whirlwind like?
Well, I mean, I was a peon, right? It was 2 years after I started.
But watching that as whoever you are, being involved.
Oh my God. It was like, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was, everybody was in Houston. That's where the Super Bowl was. I didn't go because I was so lower, but I was the guy on duty. So I remember I'm in my apartment. My apartment's getting painted, so I don't have the TV on. And I get a call, and someone's like, oh my God, crisis Super Bowl. And I'm thinking it's terrorism. I'm like, oh my God, a bomb went off. What happened? Janet Jackson's breast. Like, what?
Yeah.
And then I had to leave at 10 o'clock, leave my apartment, go to BlackRock. I'm like, we're trying to put out a statement. We give it to Channel 2. And then Monday, everybody's coming back from Houston. I'm the only one in the office. And like, literally my phone is ringing. It's like Bill O'Reilly, Barbara Walters, The View, blah, blah, blah. And I'm under my desk like, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that would be like. And you're right. I mean, I've been in those environments when we're the low man on the totem pole, and we're the one stuck in that office, and something goes wrong, and
you just don't want to get quoted.
Yeah, that's for sure. Not on breastgate. You definitely don't want to be quoted. That would be your byline forever.
Oh yeah. I don't want that showing up on my Google search.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I know one of your CBS highlights is launching Watch Magazine. Talk about, where the concept came from, what at that moment in time made you think CBS needed to do this?
Well, you'll appreciate this. When you're working in PR and entertainment, you're developing content. Like, so you're doing photo shoots, you're writing the press kit, you're writing press releases, you're writing the bios. And we at CBS had really good writers and really good photographers. And we just kept developing this and giving it to all the magazines for free.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, why are we giving it away? Why don't we keep it for ourselves? So I said, let's do a magazine. And I don't know where I got the confidence or the gumption to do this, but I went to a publisher and I said, would you do this? And they're like, we love it. And I arranged all this stuff. And then I went to my boss and I said, let's do a magazine. And he loved it. And then I had to sell it all the way up the chain to the point where I was in Les Moonvis's office saying, let's do this. And I'll never forget, he's like, I love it, but you can't spend money. And I'm like, ooh.
Right. How do I do that?
Yeah. How do I do this? So we did it though. We worked with clients and advertisers and the publisher, and it was kind of a wing and a prayer, but it worked.
And at the start, it was really a way to promote synergy with CBS, right? It did branch out after that, or was it always CBS?
No, you're right. At the start, it was kind of repurposed CBS press releases and photos. And then I was like, you know what? We have an opportunity to do something more. So I said, let's really develop it as a magazine, like a true magazine, like a Condé Nast title. And so we started phasing out the CBS propaganda, right? And developing our own content. and hiring really good writers, really good photographers. We did a redesign. We put on the newsstand. So we transitioned it from strictly a promotional publication to an editorial one that had culture coverage and travel and beauty and fashion. But there was a thread of CBS.
Gotcha. Yeah. What are you most proud of from the magazine?
Well, starting it.
That should be. Yeah, that's incredible.
Working with really talented people. That was incredible. Like I mentioned Patrick DeMarchelier, like Ellen von Unwerth, Kate Betts, Joel Stein. Just really, like, we went after like the top of the top. Because I've always thought, what's the worst that they can say? No, right?
I love that. I've said it on the show. I think I have. I might not have, but it's the one thing I really learned from my mom.
Yep.
Like, ask, what can they say? No.
That's the worst that can happen.
Yeah. It's really such a great piece of advice that, as a kid, I didn't really get, but later in life, you get no.
I mean,
look at who you worked with because you decided to ask.
I remember I really wanted Patrick DeMarchelier to shoot. And
let's tell everybody that Patrick is the photographer, the famed photographer for his portraits of Princess Diana and everything he's done.
Covers, Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted, and Devil Wears Prada, when Miranda says, "Get me DeMarchelier," this is him.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to work with him.
That's a good way. Yeah, thank you. Right? That's a better way.
Since I was a kid, and I finally got through, and I had to go to his studio and meet him. And I did not expect, he was very, very, very French, and you could barely understand a word he said. And so I said, "Here's the concept. I want to shoot." It was Kaylee Cuoco from The Big Bang Theory. Yeah. And I'm like, "This is the concept. This is what we want to do." And I'm expecting him to, like, for an hour, grill me. And he goes, "Oh, fabulous. I love it. Oh, I play with her hair. I make her sexy." And that was it. That's it. Like, literally the meeting lasted 5 minutes. And I'm like, "Wait, really?" He's like, "Oh, Chajali, blah. And I was like, "All right." And he agreed to do it in like 5 minutes.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Like I said, that was my favorite part of the job. I worked with some talented photographers, right, but not a Patrick. That would be something. That would be something.
That was, and I learned so much from him. Like, he was, his stuff worked like a Swiss watch. Like, there'd be a call time, say 9 o'clock, shoot at 5. Call times always go over. It's always 9 or 10. Ended like 5 o'clock. You got everything you wanted. Perfection. Like, the lighting was exquisite. Everything was but he charged a lot of money.
Yeah, that wasn't in any budget I had.
Yeah. Those were the days.
Yeah, that's a good budget for somebody like him.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I read that you introduced culture into the magazine and a regular section called Muse, which provided the inspiration, I read, to start your company. Can you talk about that? How that section provided the inspiration?
Yes. So I always thought the one thing missing from the magazine was culture, books, painters, musicians, writers, museums, exhibits. And I really wanted to capture that because CBS, we owned Simon & Schuster. We had CBS Sunday Morning. We had all these great incubators of amazing art. And so I created this section. It was called Muse. And we started profiling artists. And, we would interview them, do a photo shoot. We started doing salons where they would perform or speak. And then I got to know a lot of them. And I stayed friends with them. And then when I had this idea to start my own company, I said, you know what, that's what I want to do. So I went to all those people and I said, this is my idea. I want to do a very refined boutique kind of PR company, but very white glove, very, tailored, exquisite. Will you come with me? And they all did. And that was kind of like the foundation for my company, was a very refined experience, only the best of the best, very exclusive, very like, singular. But it all started from the magazine.
That's amazing. Well, we'll come back to the company in a minute, but you've been a well-respected speechwriter, a reporter, PR extraordinaire, where, for people who don't know, just in case they don't know, in PR, writing skills are so important.
Yep.
Was there always a book inside of you ready to come out?
Not at all. It happened by accident. I mean, this book is
yeah. Tell us where the idea.
It's such a lark. There is a private.
I love it even more for that reason. Then,
well, there's a private Facebook group called PR Marketing and Media Czars on Facebook, and I'm a member. And one night,
Me too.
yeah, it's the top of the top. And one night, during the pandemic, I was feeling very salty. I might have drank a little bit. And I started just making...
Like we all did during
I started making lists of everything that pissed me off. And I posted it. And it just lit up. And comments, likes. And I was like, oh, people like me. I'll do it again. So I just started doing it. And it kind of snowballed. And a good friend of mine...
Too. That's wild. I love that.
Well, yeah. And a good friend of mine who runs a gossip site was like, he posted it. He posted I was doing this, and it'd be a great book. And so I was like, that's great. I'll do a book. And then Page Six reported I was doing it. Wow. And I had a publisher like that day reach out and say, we want to publish it. And I'm like, you realize that this is all lists of things I hate. Like, you really want to print this? So they said, yeah. I mean, we broadened it, and we added more content and an illustrator and funny charts and graphs. But really, that's how it started.
Oh, well, I love that. The illustrations, just in a book like that, can make it. I love the fact that you didn't even have to pitch it to an editor.
Nope, they came to me, which I know every aspiring writer is now doing voodoo on me.
They're making a list with your name on it right now.
I mean, I feel so guilty about it because I'm like, this book happened by accident. I always joke, they're paying me to be a bitch. I do it for free.
Well, that's fantastic. But you must have repped book authors, in your career. So they're probably cursing you out. You get, your first book comes right to you.
I don't really tell them because a lot of my authors are overseas. And so they don't know I'm writing a book.
Yeah. Because you might be taking some of them to task in the book. So you talk about millennials, surly reporters, obnoxious clients. Were you keeping a hit list at some point of the folks pissing you off over the years?
No, well, yeah, mentally. I mean, honestly, it came so natural. Like, I would literally sit down and it was like just dripping out of my fingers. Like, I guess I'm an angry person.
Out of the wine glass?
Yes. And literally, I had it was such a pleasure to write. Like, this whole writer's, torture. Oh, this was pleasure. This is absolute pleasure. I was literally like, it was like Satan was at my fingertips. And I just started writing and thinking everything that pissed me off. And it was a long list.
A long list.
Yeah.
But I love that, in your description, a searing, hilarious, and pissy voice that his own psychiatrist calls deeply concerning.
Yeah, it's very unwoke, and it's very profane. It's very inappropriate, but funny. And anybody who works in PR media will get it, because I'm just popping balloons. I'm just saying it.
There's a lot of us who work in the, and yep. You need a little levity at times about the, your own industry and some of the
Oh, absolutely.
Some of
I'm
the
still
stuff
getting
or
canceled.
some of the shit we've had to take.
I mean, I'm still getting canceled after this. I'll never work again, so this thing has to sell.
It's on Amazon right now, so people
It
can
has
go.
to sell.
I love that. I love that. I love that. So you shed light on the industry's idiosyncrasies, insanities, contradictions. Can you share some of your favorite things that you've put in it, or even some that you did, some that you decided to leave out, but you still think are worthy?
I did have to leave out a few things. I probably shouldn't say it, but I know you, so I will. So I have a list. It's like reasons why PR people drink. How to add zest to your bullshit press releases. How I rate the kind of clients by the numbers of scotch. I have a chapter saying reasons why a normal person should call HR, but it will backfire and you'll get fired. So maybe not. So it's really profane and funny. But there were some things that the publisher was like, you can't do that. Like I had a chart of match the terrorist group to the PR agency most deserving. And they're like, you cannot put the Taliban to that a PR agency. I'm like, come on, that's funny. Like, no, we're trying to line on that.
Were you always funny?
I'm not like stand-up comedian funny, but I've always had like a quick wit, and I'm very, very modest, and I make fun of myself all the time, and I like to point out the absurdity and just call people on their bullshit and laugh at situations and kind of observe and how crazy they are. And one of the things in the book that I literally want to be like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staffs on this. I want to get rid of Google Docs, Spread Docs, Dropbox, trackers. I've had it.
There's a lot of them.
Oh my God, they're horrible.
Yeah.
Like all these, officious people, like they send you like some, like click this and like there's like lights and cameras and buzzing and fill this out. No. Oh, fuck you.
Yeah. Got to download this.
Oh God. No.
Takes up your whole computer.
Yep. And that's the thing now is that's what our industry has become. Everything is a platform, or, you have to join Slack, or someone invited me to the Clubhouse. I'm like, no, decline. Or now there's something called Itch or Twitch or Sitch, or I don't know what that is.
Well, Twitch is the gaming platform. I don't know if that's the one, but yeah, there are a ridiculous amount.
Too many.
But when you and I started in PR, there were no, social tracking services. You couldn't do any of that. It's incredible. I mean, there were no social media when we started.
No, I have this one client who they started and they said, every month we want you to do the tracker. And it was like this Excel sheet on a Google something. And it had like color coded and fields and like everybody had a color and blah, blah, blah. And you would literally spend like 2 days updating this. And I said, finally, I just said, look, do you want me to, I don't know, do what you're paying me for, which is getting you press, or do you want me to fill out your fucking tracker? Because either one, like, tell me which one. Yeah, and they finally said, all right, we get it.
I mean, I remember when I started, I used to have to, sit at the copy machine and photocopy, articles that we'd get.
Yeah.
So, you really had to manually do it all when,
But that made sense. Now it's like there's too many bells and whistles when, I'm a workhorse. I prefer to get on the phone with journalists and sell and pitch and get press placements. I'm not the officious, let's, admin and like, the new thing is, I wake up and like, there's people in my calendar. I'm like, how'd you get in there? Like, how are you in there? And someone's like, oh no, they can invite you to a meeting. I'm like, I don't want to go to that meeting.
Oh, I know. Sometimes you look at your calendar and how are they in there? That is very funny. It is so true. How did you get in that calendar?
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't stand that.
And I even go through that with my husband. I'm like, sometimes his things are on mine. I'm like, that's not me. Or he's
And
like, why is your meeting in my calendar? And I was like, don't ask me.
And I'm like, decline.
So once the publisher said, let's do it, how long did it take you to put it all together?
So that was in June. I had the framework probably in a month. Because I had to like take what I had written and kind of structure it and create chapters. So a month, and then just revising it. And I have a wonderful illustrator named Darren Greenblatt who really visualized what Chloe is and who's Chloe in her world. And
he did the cover.
He did the cover and he did all the illustrations.
That's awesome.
He got it. And so
I mean, that image is just so perfect of PR.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. So like it's now in, what's funny is now it's in copy editing, but someone said, oh, you should do a sensitivity edit. Like, what is that? Well, you don't want to offend anybody. I'm like, I want to offend everybody.
Are you using any real names?
So I am. I actually have a positive list of people you should read, and I'm using real names for that. I didn't use any real names for the bad stuff.
Okay.
But
when you say positive names for people you should read, columnists, reporters, type thing,
like
books.
Fran Lebowitz is my favorite person in the world, so she's at the top. I love Frank Bruni, love him. Nicole Wallace on MSNBC is my.
I mean, if you know her, I want her on my show. I think she's one of the smartest people.
Love her.
Love her.
I love Mika in the morning.
Yeah, I was never on MSNBC, and we switched during the pandemic. We were so sick of CNN's breaking news, for a paper cut, and really fell in love with Morning Joe. I love them. I mean, Nicole can do no wrong, and Rachel.
Love Rachel. I love Stephanie Rule.
Yeah, she's very cool too. 9 a.m.
So that is really the only positive.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's a great group of people.
Yeah. No, I kind of like made a list of who should people really read and listen to. And it really just dripped out of me. I was like Ashley Parker from the Washington Post, Frank Bruni from the New York Times, Jonathan Lemire from AP, John Meacham, Mika, like all the journalists who I feel like are really like setting the agenda and speaking intelligently about everything and kind of bringing us back to earth.
Facts matter.
Facts matter.
Yeah. Jonathan, who's been doing way too early. Pacey's show, which I love. No, that's great. And it is great to point that out. I mean, people really do people need information. I mean,
100%.
Misinformation has been the biggest problem. And, if people just can, even if they love Fox News, I don't care. I love Fox News, but read other things as well.
Absolutely. You really need a well-balanced media diet. And, when we were growing up, I remember
there were three, It wasn't even Fox yet when we were growing up.
Watching Tom Brokaw was NBC Nightly News was 6:30. So it was local news at 6, Brokaw at 6:30. And then my mom insisted we watch on PBS the Nightly Business Report with Louis Rukeyser or somebody. And so literally an hour and a half of news. And it was great because it was like, it wasn't right or left. It was like, here's what happened. That doesn't happen anymore.
No. Yeah. Here's what happened isn't.
No.
Yeah. And sadly, I just heard before coming on the air with you, another school shooting today in Texas, unfortunately.
It
doesn't get better. Did you enjoy the writing process when you started to do it for the book?
Oh, immensely. Like it was my crack because, when you're doing PR and, I love my clients and I love doing it, but it's a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're selling. And you think of creative ways to do it, but it's not really triggering like your real creativity. And this was. So I would literally like work all day. And then at 6, I would just start writing this. And it was something to look forward to. It was creative and it was funny. It was not a struggle. And I know every writer's going to hate me, but it just poured out of me.
That's great.
Yeah.
But, the other thing is, again, this is a pandemic story because there you were really at home because we were in lockdown, having a glass or two and
or bottle.
And writing on the Czar's blog, how
I know literally some nights I'd be like, I really hate
yeah, I know for sure alcohol bills went through the roof during lockdown.
Oh my good Lord. Yeah. I found a home delivery service and I was like, they're like, you again? I'm like, no, I had a big party last night.
Well, there, like I said in the intro, for daytime fans, there is a chapter on this lovely show. Talk about your introduction to Santa Barbara.
So, 1985, Santa Barbara was on at 3:00. I mean, in Florida, where I grew up, 3:00, NBC. We got out of school at 2:30. So I would come home at 3 and there was nothing else on. And I started watching it. And there was something about it that it was so interesting and the writing was so clever. Even at I think it was 10, I noticed there was something different about the show. And I really like everything from the color of it. I remember the color at the Capwell house and with that Spanish tile, it was just so your eyes popped and the characters were so interesting. And I just started watching it and I got addicted. Even at 10 years old, I got addicted to it and it just kept, and it was kind of when the show was really in its, at the beginning of its glory years, when it was really catching fire and it got better and better and better and better. And I was hooked.
And I love, this is your book, so you get to do with it what you want and you get to, provide a love letter to this.
Oh yeah. It was funny because I just stuck it in there and it has nothing to do with the book. And the publisher's like, well, what? I'm like, I don't care. It's my book. Fuck you. And it got through. And it's literally you know what, millennials say best ever. And they always overblow things and exaggerate. Well, I'm exaggerating and I'm saying best show ever.
There's a lot of people who agree. There's
Absolutely.
A lot of people. Who were some of the characters that you loved?
Oh my God. I loved Robin Mattson as Gina, Justin Dees, Keith Timmons. Fantastic.
Just saying those actors, know, I know the entire cast was such a talent, but just
Marcy Walker, Eden, A. Martinez, Jed Allen, Judith McConnell, Robin Wright.
Judith McConnell's going to join me in a couple weeks.
Oh my God. You have to tell her. I watched, and it's on YouTube. Someone put the Who Shot Channing Jr. Episodes, literally, and they spliced them into 12 parts. And Judith McConnell, when she first came on the show as Sophia, she was disguised as Dominic because she was presumed dead. And so she disguised herself as a butler in the Capwell house.
Of course.
And the main mystery was who shot Channing Jr. It was her. She just didn't remember. She shot her own son by accident. And there's a scene, it's very very James Bond, like drawing room where everybody's in a tuxedo and Cruz is trying to solve who did it. And Sophia's memory comes back. And Judith McConnell is Sophia. Honestly, it's one of the best performances ever on daytime TV. Ever.
Wow, I'm gonna search that out. Thank you.
She literally realizes that she killed her own son. And she drops to the floor. And it is just mesmerizing.
Wow. Oh, yeah. I can't wait.
Incredible.
I love that we can find everything, you know, on YouTube sometimes, you know, something like.
Oh, that's how I got through the pandemic. By the way, I found Santa Barbara is on YouTube. It's fantastic. It's all the best, because there was a lot of crap, let's be honest, but there was some really good stuff. And I watched, you know, like during, you know, I mean, like, what was it? April last year, April, May, June, like nothing was going on. I would just watch Santa Barbara on YouTube.
I love that. Love that. Yeah. And you mentioned another upcoming guest that I'm going to have, because a lot of fans have been talking about this writer, but I'm curious why you mentioned Patrick Mulcahy.
Oh, literally the best writer. Just fantastic. He
and how do you know that as a daytime fan? Like, how did you know it was Patrick's writing that you fell in love with?
So I would see his name on the credits, and I remember I would start. You know, I read as a kid. I read all the soap magazines, and I would see his name.
Me too.
And gradually, the Dobsons were very, very, very generous and recognizing him as the voice of, like, you know, Mason, and like, you know, he was the one who, like, the clever dialogue, and he just got it. And the actors loved him because he knew how to write. And then I remember he left, and I think he went to Guiding Light, or one of
the Guiding Light, definitely for some time.
Right. But when the Dobsons came back to Santa Barbara, they kind of wanted to announce that they were back. So they brought him back to write like 2 or 3 episodes that were brilliant. You know, he used to come up with, like, you know, he would Shakespeare dialogue, like poetry, like just exquisite dialogue. And years later, I friended him on Facebook.
I love that.
We kind of had exchanges, and he lived, I don't know if he still does, in San Francisco. And we were actually going to have a drink. And there was some reason we couldn't. And I was just like, oh, I've always wanted to meet this guy. But probably the most talented writer outside of the Dobsons in daytime.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. Love that. And I loved, I mean, because it doesn't happen that often in daytime, or even in prime time. You don't hear people, but you acknowledge the legendary PR woman who put Santa Barbara on the map.
Mary.
And did you know Mary?
I knew Mary very well. So I was that geeky kid who, huge Santa Barbara fan. And then I started my own fanzine, which was a magazine I typed in my bedroom, and I would photocopy at my mom's office.
Love hearing that.
And I would sell it.
Fantastic.
And Santa Barbara was always the main focus. And I literally would call Mary Anderson. And Mary thought it was hysterical that here's this, like, geeky 12-year-old publishing his own fanzine. And she just opened her heart, and we would talk, and she would get me access to, like, Marcy Walker, and you know, and it was funny because my mom would come home and she would see these phone bills. Because remember, this was like, you know,
yeah, totally,
it was like expensive.
Yeah,
and it was
calling New York was a, you know, it
was like 818 because I would call Mary, and then there was another wonderful woman, PR woman named Kimberly Farron, who was also amazing. And you know, years later, I moved to LA for a very short stint, and Mary and I always met, and we stayed in touch. And she really was such a character. The journalists loved her. Just so honest. And if something was bullshit, she'd tell you it was bullshit.
That's amazing. I mean, that's how I really started out. I was a fan first of Guiding Light and World Touring.
Right.
Yeah.
But I remember you guys ran a very well-oiled machine. Like, I remember the other soaps, pardon my French, were a shit show in terms of PR. You ran a very tight shop. It was always like, actors always showed up. They always knew what they were doing. There was never any surprises. Like, you're up there with Mary.
I was lucky with, we had a good group. People did, show up. People, we had a few young, like Zach was somebody we would have had to worry for photo shoots and make sure you called and woke his ass up or something like that. But for the most part, we were, but that, just lucky. That's more casting than my end. But yes, did you watch other soaps?
I did. So I was, I kind of watched, so I loved Another World and Santa Barbara. I kind of like Days. I was big Young the Restless. Loved that.
So was it fun getting to do some stuff for Watch with them? Did you get, I assume you did.
Oh yeah, it was great because, you had all these people you grew up with. And I remember I went to LA and I was on the set of Young the Restless and I was in Victor's office. And the oil painting of Eric Braeden is right there. And I'm like taking photos next to it. And everybody's like, you're a freak. I'm like, Victor Newman.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It was awesome.
I find it, I've noticed it through this show, I think. It is incredible the amount of folks like you and I who have had a love for this industry and ended up working not necessarily in daytime, but in entertainment and with, having that opportunity to be on the set of The Young and the Rest, have those opportunities. It's pretty special. I mean, I just did something with Mary O'Leary, who is a producer of a ton of soaps, Guiding Light, Young and the Restless, all of that. And she was a fan of Dark Shadows and wrote Jonathan Frid, the star who played Barnabas Collins, a letter, and became great friends with him. And now is putting out a documentary, based on his life. But I find that I don't know that happened in prime time where actors and fans make that kind of connection that we might make with people, like even just people behind the scenes, like the PR woman at Santa Barbara that you befriended.
Yeah,
it's a unique industry.
It's a very tight industry. And what I love about daytime is it gives you a broad canvas to really write stories and characters and develop the characters, and to really get great writers. I mean, remember Doug Marland?
Yes.
Amazing,
that man knew how to write.
Yeah. And like Pam Long.
Yeah. Hogan Sheffer in later years at World Touring.
Yeah. I mean, they really knew, like Bridget and Jerry Dobson, just
Agnes Nixon,
Erna Phillips, right?
Yeah.
They really knew how to create communities of characters who like could weave in and out of their lives, and like, they really create fictional towns, right? And like for me though, Santa Barbara for me actually transcended daytime television. It was such like this supernova, and there was that 2-year period where I really think it was the best thing on daytime, prime time. Like, it was magic.
I mean, look at the talent that's come out of daytime. It's really something, huh?
Right? I mean, and like, if you look back, I mean, Judith Light, those years when she was on One Life to Live, where she had the split personalities. I mean, you cannot watch that. That is,
some of the best. Nothing better.
Best acting. Erica Slezak. I'm trying to think, like
Beverly McKinsey.
Justin Dees from Santa Barbara, and when he was on As the World Turns. Julianne Moore.
Yeah. I mean, but even, Kim Zimmer, like the
Kim Zimmer.
you know,
She
she was on
you know,
both Guiding Light and Santa Barbara.
yeah. I mean, I think the Santa Barbara thing was kind of not the right move. But they were so desperate to save the show, and she is such a big name, and so they brought her on, but it was kind of the sunset years.
Right.
But she was just like Reva Shane, like she was
But
so.
I mean, that's like the talent in daytime is, beyond. Do you think there's another book inside you?
I don't know, because this one is a complete accident.
Right.
Unless there's another accident.
Well, let's not hope for another pandemic.
I know, but it's funny. I've had producer come to me and say, "This is a sitcom." I'm like,
yeah,
"What do you mean?"
I mean, the humor in it could be a fantastic, sitcom. I mean, Hacks is not really a sitcom.
Right.
The Amazon show dealing with the PR industry.
Right.
But this could be a really great.
Well, it's the generational divide between young and old and the workplace. And, one of the points I make is, the generation in their early 20s, they've grown up with too much self-esteem.
Mm.
Their parents are telling them, "You're a superstar. You're the best. No, like you're amazing." And then they hear it on social media too. Yeah. And then they come into the workplace and they want a trophy because they never heard differently, right?
Yeah.
And then they realize, oh shit, like I'm not a superstar. I'm just one of many. And that's kind of the culture clash.
I always say, like, still, no matter what level I've ever been at, I'll get on the floor and stuff an envelope if I had to. But
absolutely.
A new person feels that's above them, staying late. No, walks out the door at 5 o'clock. It's like,
Well, I had one of my first assignments was I had just joined CBS, and the head of the department, I'm not going to mention his name, but said he wanted to get Al Franken on tape for people in the industry and his friends. And he said, "I want you to go out and I want you to get 100 copies of Al Franken on tape." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he goes, "And don't come back unless you have them." I'm like, "Oh my God." And I'm thinking, "Oh, I'll just go to Barnes and Noble. They'll have them." Well, they'll have 4 copies. I literally spent the whole day going to every Barnes and Noble, every Borders, and I finally got 100 of them. All day. I come back and I'm expecting like, great job, whatever. Door is closed. I never even got acknowledgement that I did it. And that was kind of like, welcome to the big leagues, kid.
Yeah.
And it was like that. Like, you paid your dues, and,
you really did. You did.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, there was never a trophy. If you did your job, it was like, to get recognition, you had to go overboard. You had to give 150%. And then they were like, all right. But, just showing up and doing your job was not enough. Mm-hmm. Now, that is, if you don't get a trophy for doing that, they call HR.
God. Well, congratulations. You just celebrated your 5th anniversary this past April.
Thank you.
Your own company. What prompted you to make that? I know you left CBS, but what prompted the decision to open?
Well, when you turn 40 and you realize, I had hit a glass ceiling. Because, there were very, very good people above me and they weren't going anywhere.
Mm.
And I was like, you know what? I saw it coming with the magazine. We were traveling. I saw it kind of the wave cresting. And there were some internal things at CBS going on that I was like, you know what? I really want to work with artists. I really love the culture aspect. I love luxury and culture and fashion and beauty. And that's what I want to do. And yeah, that was kind of
And
the
you
impetus.
did it.
I did it. You know, I'll tell you, those first 3 years were very hard.
What was the hardest part? Or, you know, now that you can, you know, take this moment to look back, what do you think?
Growing a business and learning to start a small business. And, you know, we're good at PR, but not for me. I was not good at management and budgeting and, managing client. Like I'm good at getting people PR, but
right. You, Jeremy, still want to be doing the day-to-day of what public relations is, not necessarily the, you know, the not fun part of running a business.
I had to learn that, and I learned it the hard way. And so those first 3 years were torture. And I was always like, oh God, I really fucked up. But I really got my sea legs, and I got the hang of it, and it really started becoming fun right before the pandemic. And then I'm like, oh, that didn't last. And then it really picked up again this year. So yeah, it's been a journey.
And what's the best part?
The best part is working for yourself and knowing the work I'm putting into it is I'm getting equity and I own something. And I'm not working for the man. Mm-hmm. I'm working for myself.
Yeah, you're not working for that, you know.
Yeah, I'm not making someone else
larger than life.
Yeah, some faceless corporation that's going to give you a 1% raise.
I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that. So it's it was definitely culture clash. But I'm glad I did it.
Well, you should be. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think it's amazing. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for stopping by. This has been so much fun.
Absolutely.
Everybody go out. The book is out March of 2022. You can purchase it now at Amazon.com. F off Chloe, surviving the OMGs and FMLs in your media career. Thank you, my friend. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Have a great afternoon.
Absolutely. Take care.
Okay. Bye, Jeremy. Thanks so much, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in today. And Jeremy Murphy, of course, for stopping by and talking about his new book. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't. You can turn on notifications right down below. Get reminded of all upcoming shows. I hope you will all return tonight and join me for conversations with Alan at 7 p.m. when a gentleman from Scott Richmond from the ADL will join me live here. And Friday afternoon, October 8th at 3 p.m., please join us to celebrate National Coming Out Day. Have a great evening, everybody. I will see you this evening at 7.